It's the Rangers Journal now.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Rangers Journal. This is the Monday Night Pod. We're going to run it as a bit of a Q&A if we get enough people to give us some questions, but also I wanted to touch on something that became apparent over the weekend, that we actually do have some decent players that might go for some decent money in the summer. So Doug has kindly done a slide for us, so we're going to bring that up and down a few times just to go over the maybe sellable assets that we've got available to the club should they want to start the rebuild by funding it from player sales. Also, there is the idea that we may want to keep a hold of players to build for next season. So we'll discuss that in between, hopefully answering a few questions that come in. So great panel, a great panel this evening. Ryan, I'll come to you first of all, mate. Thanks for joining us this evening in what is a quiet week.
No problem, thanks for having me. Hopefully we can keep this going as long as we can. It's a wee bit dry in the old Rangers news front, but I'm sure we'll find a way of talking rubbish for the next 45 minutes.
Well, it's a wee bit dry in the comments as well, mate, so I'll just keep reiterating. Please stick some questions in there that Rangers related, obviously, that we can talk over. Doug, thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you very much for doing that slide for me. It was short notice this morning. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Obviously, just a struggle through any period of time when Rangers aren't playing is always difficult, but we're getting there. Back to football this weekend, so happy to see us back and see how things go.
Good stuff. And Scotty, mate, you said to me earlier on that if you get back for the gym in time, you'd join us. So did you just cut it short or did you finish your set?
No, I managed to get back in time, thankfully. Billy. Thanks for having me on.
Very welcome. Ryan, I'll stay with you just in the topic of the international break. A few of our players went away, noticeably Nico Raskin, Hamza Igaman, both get game time. But I was seeing last night, I never got to watch the game in full, I've just seen clips, but Nico Raskin seemed to have come away from that game, his first full international start, with his reputation greatly boosted. Did you get a chance to see any of it or see any of the highlights?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't. But from what I kind of gathered, a standing ovation coming off the park. Obviously, a great result for his team. Come from 2-0 down, I think they were in the first leg, to turn it around and win 3-0 in the second leg. But by all accounts, it seems that they're absolutely raving about him, which will do his reputation no harm, as you're saying. And from a selfish point of view, as a Rangers fan, his value no harm either.
Doug, I've seen a really good photo on Twitter this afternoon, and it's they're doing a huddle. So we'll step over that and not talk about that too much. But they're doing a huddle, and Raskin is, not front and centre, but he's right in that picture there, and it's just I'm proud to see our players back on that kind of big international stage. Now you got De Bruyne, and he's doing some. I'll try and get it on the screen. He's doing like a thumbs up thing, and it's pointing right at Raskin, and it's almost like he's saying, "Right, guys, pass it to this guy." That's the kind of influence he had in the game last night. Again, I don't know if you had the chance to see it, but he's done his figures-wise for us, no damage.
Yeah, absolutely. I managed to catch about 20 minutes of the game, and he very much looks the player that we've been seeing the last sort of 2 months or so. Well, in fact, across the whole season. He's really good on the ball. He was tenacious. He was getting about the pitch a lot. He was involved in a lot of play. He's just really present and really affecting the game. And like you say, like Ryan said, the fans really seemed to appreciate that when he did get subbed off near the end, getting a load of applause. So as you say, all good for the player, and good for the club to have our people out there on the international stage playing well. It's not only is it good for getting his value up, but just good for the club in general, because I think that is a concern for players when they come to Scotland, that it could be potentially damaging for their international careers because it's not a top league. So seeing our players doing well on that level is good for going into a topic like transfers as well.
Yep. Scott, I guess there was a question in there and I've missed it. So another outstanding performance by Raskin. Will he captain his next season? Do you think that's something that's a possibility?
Right, well, there's two scenarios. The first scenario is he signs a new contract and he gets given the armband and he stays for 2 years, I would like to say, and then we sell him on. Or if he's not going to sign a new contract, Rangers need to strike while I am so and sell him this summer. That would probably be my answer to that question. Would be one of the two scenarios. Raskin's got a level of confidence now that he's never had before. He's playing at a level that he's never played at before. He's excelling. So it really depends on how much he loves Rangers and how much he wants to leave to go and play. Because he could go and play in a top 5 league now, no bother. If we get him to stay in a couple of years, we could probably double his value. But we've been too guilty at times of not selling when players are going to run down their contract. So if he's going to run it down, then we need to sell him now. Well, we can maximise his value.
No, I agree. And let's pull up this slide, Ryan, and I'll come to you. Hopefully you can see the screen well enough. So he's age 24 just now, and his contract ends basically 2 years' time. We got transfer market value is 5.4. I don't know how much I put into the transfer market valuations, to be honest with you, but the potential move here, and as much as that might be the top end at the moment, especially with his contract running out in 2 years, 20 odd million. Ryan, is that unachievable for us with this summer at least, how his reputation has been growing?
£20 million a high order, to be honest with you, at this moment in time for him. You've probably got to look at comparables. I'd mentioned in the chat earlier on about people trying to kind of put a value against him. 5.4 is honestly too low at this moment in time. You're looking definitely up at the 10 million plus mark, to be honest with you. If you look at Arne Engels at Celtic signed in the summer, the guy whose international place they actually took off of him, he's come in with just a handful of caps for the Belgian national team, plays in a similar position to him, and he was signed for £11 million on the basis that they think they'll be able to improve him and actually sell him in for more. So Raskin at this moment in time probably sitting just a slight level above him as far as reputation is concerned. Obviously, he's in the team and Engels isn't. We've got to be willing to do business on this. Like Scotty was saying, you've got to look back at Kent, you've got to look back at Morelos, where there was an opportunity to sell and we sat on them, and ultimately he had millions of pounds walking out the door for nothing, and players picking up wages in the last year of their contract and not really representing themselves as well as what we know they could do on the park. So if the numbers are right, we've got to do it. I think one of Raskin's first interviews, he spoke about a desire to play for Chelsea at some point in the future as well. That was day one, which I didn't really have a problem with, to be honest with you. It shows ambition more than anything else. It shows that he's looking to come in, improve himself and take himself onto truthfully bigger and better things in the spotlight in the English Premier League. So I've not got an issue with it. It's got to be right. I think we've got to be careful about this whole sitting them down and getting a contract time, because we've obviously done really, really well to get the wage bill down. And now we're talking about getting guys around the table and they're going to be looking for more money. So are we being counterproductive in the achievements that we've had, getting the wage bill down the way? He is still under contract for another 2 years. So whether he likes it or not, he's still our player for the next 24 months. But for me, if a decent offer came in and it made the valuation that the club holds for him just now, bearing in mind at the start of the season, he wasn't actually even really playing, to be honest with you. Remember, there was a period of time he was actually sitting on the bench, and Barron was very much the kind of the linchpin of the team. He was the boy that was kind of stealing the headlines, and everyone was thinking he's good player of the year. So you're kind of I'm drawing comparables to maybe something like a Bassey performance as well, where Bassey was excellent in the last 6 months of the season in 21-22, and then like a massive move to Ajax. There's no reason why Raskin couldn't do something similar in these things. So numbers have to be right, but if it comes this summer, I've not got a problem with it.
One thing, Doug, we haven't done well, and it is noticeable with the European run, is we had a few sellable assets, and for whatever reason, didn't cash in. Maybe the height Morelos has been mentioned, Kamara probably as well. I guess we did cash in on Bassey, so maybe that was the reason that we only needed one. But I think probably the problem we have with not getting maybe what them across the city get is we don't have much of a history of selling players at that price that then go on to be something, so we might struggle. And I'm going to bring up this question here. Thank you very much, Gordon. Please also, everyone else, give us any questions you've got. If the takeover goes through, will the clubs be needing to pay big money for our players, not pennies? Doug, I'll give you a floor here, but I don't think it's getting to do with the takeover. I think it's to do with our kind of trading history is the problem.
Yeah, I think you've two things I think that really contribute to the success that Celtic have over the way. So the first is that they're a winning team. So when they're selling players that they can say are winning things, and particularly for ones that have been there for a couple of years, have got multiple trophies in their cabinet. And then once you've done that a few times, you then get the history of the players going on and doing well. I mean, you have to remember, I mean, they've got players like Van Dijk in their history as sales that have gone on to do really well. There's a handful of other players in the Premier League that have had decent careers as well, so they can point to those sort of players and say, look, you know, these are the type of people that have come through us and gone on to do big things. So we've, as you say, we've just not got that right now, and we'll need to build that up. We can point to Bassey. You know, he went to Ajax. He didn't have the greatest of times, but he's gone on to become a solid enough defender in the Premier League. So, you know, we've got one at least there that we can kind of point to. Obviously, Patterson's not really taken off totally at Everton yet. But that's what we need to, like you say, we need to kind of build up that history. That, and as I say, get back to our winning ways so that we can be pointing to our players and going, you know, these are players that win things. They've got the experience of winning things. And we can do that. You know, until then, we're selling them largely on potential. And someone like Raskin, you know, I think he's our right now at this exact moment is our best asset. Because another thing that can often just can add a couple extra million even to a signing is just the hype that's around the player. Those 6 months that Bassey had absolutely skyrocketed, hit the hype around him because he played so well in, you know, those European games, and we have to be honest as well. Bigger clubs, it's the European games that they care about. They want to see how well the players do in those games because that's the level that they consider to be what is worth to them, as opposed to is he doing well against St Mirren. So, you know, Raskin's had that. He's playing well in Europe. He's played well against multiple teams. And again, obviously, if he goes and does that in international duty, then that can help to push him that little bit. That's why I've kind of got him at that. If, like Scotty said, we do manage to get him to extend his contract, that'll be what then helps to push him into that potentially a Bassey-esque level. If he continues to play the way he's playing, and we get another couple of years added on, then we can maybe start to look at trying to get that kind of money. If he carries on what he's doing. And as I say, like you said, I think he could definitely go off and play at a higher level. And you know, again, if we can get players doing that, then again we can start not only pointing to that in terms of selling players, but then again when it comes to the pipeline and the cyclical nature, we're also saying that to new players who we're trying to sign. We're saying, look, come with us right now because, you know, look what he did and he did and he did. They came to us and where they are now, and that becomes a selling point for buying players as well as selling them.
If I can move on to a comment a bit further up, let me just find it again, Scotty, and I'll come to you on this. This is a fair point. We did get offered money for Kent and Morelos. Maybe not, maybe as high as that. Those figures there, I don't know for definite, but we were offered money for them. And I think the manager at the time would have been Gerrard, had too much of an influence over who we sold and who we kept. With these new owners coming in, hopefully that's not going to be something that's going to be a problem. We as a fan base need to get used to, we need to sell when the player is high, you know, highest value.
Going back to it, Billy, would we have stopped 10 in a row without them two players? You know what I mean? This is
no, but it was probably the season after. Remember when Gerrard said you got to fix
Aye.
your roof when the sun's shining? It was, I think it was more, well, that's I got the impression that he wasn't prepared to let them go at that point.
Aye. Fair enough. It depends when the offers and all that came in. I think Morelos was a couple of years before that. I think he was Lille that came in for him. I'm not sure about Kent. But aye, it's as it is. Rangers haven't been good at selling players when the iron's hot. This is where we went wrong. You look at the business in terms of our departures in the summer, and guys with the quality of Todd Cantwell and all that going out the door. Goldson, Sam Lammers. Now you can say whether that's quality or not. That's all down to opinion. But we were getting utter peanuts for these guys if they're a fairly big outlay to bring them in, the wages and all that they were on. So it was bad business. I think the way we've done it this summer has been good business. At least a Jeff Day, Agaman, Barron, players like this are turning into your sellable assets now. And I hope that's the way the club continue to do business moving forward, even with the takeover. The interesting thing with the takeover is, and just kind of speaking about the comment before Gordon's, is that it'll be interesting to see transfer targets compared to if we weren't going to be takeover, who would have been coming in free transfers, and you're buying your Jeff Days for leagues like Cyprus at £500,000. Now, if we're going to be able to go out and spend a couple of £1 million on each player, is that a good thing? Because you look at Agaman, Jeff Day, they've been two of the better signings this season, coming in on low fees. Like Sabai Rami hasn't been great at all. Does it open the door for you to go and maybe put in a bid for Lennon Miller if Raskin goes? Does you go by Cherny, Seema? You're looking at a completely different window of transfer targets now compared to what would have been without the takeover. So, and compile all that in with the interest in Agaman, Jeff Day, and everyone Raskin, for example. It could be a really exciting time to be a Rangers fan this summer.
Well, let me bring the list up again, mate, and I'm going to ask you, Scotty, to pick a player to talk about next. So you've got quite a few to choose from. Who would you like to discuss whether they should stay or go, or the transfer value?
Let's go with Nicholas Raskin, because he's a name on everybody's lips just now.
That's who we were talking about, mate. You need to pick somebody else.
Fair enough. Agaman, I can't see going in the summer. I think he's going to stay. Jeff Day's one that Chelsea have been touted. Chris Jack says that Chelsea are interested in those other interests. Do we sell him? I'll let you boys talk about it.
Well, we'll stay on Jeff. Let me kind of talk over there. So, age 21-year-old, still going to be here for 3 more years. Transfer market valuation of 3.5. Potential valuation, again, depends who comes in for him, but it's down there as £10 million. So let me come to you, Ryan. Jeff Day's obviously had a decent start to the season. I would say he's kind of went downhill a wee bit recently, but when interest from Chelsea came in, it wasn't, it turned out to be true. It wasn't rebuffed. They were looking at him. Do you see, is that someone you'd be prepared to let go in the summer for the right fee? Or would you like to build a team with him there?
No, I think we could be looking to be doing better than him. We've seen various incidents of frailties within his game at various junctions in the season. You think about Andy Halliday's goal for Motherwell at Hampden, which he basically ran in the direction of the ball for some weird apparent reason. He's not blameless for Queen's Park's goal as well at Ibrox for very poor defending. Could he have done better with Bruno Fernandes at Old Trafford as well, where Bruno Fernandes has ghosted away from me to score their winner in the last couple of minutes? So there's various instances of lack of concentration, which you don't get chances like that at Rangers, to be honest with you. Teams have got to take their chances against us, and you don't get into it's. There's if there's an option there for Chelsea to buy him, could Chelsea buy him off us and give him back to us for a season? To give us maybe a possibility and a chance to recruit again. We're obviously going to be looking at recruiting in various different departments, but could a deal be done with Chelsea that they own him, but we get one more season to use and enjoy him? But again, he falls under that kind of bracket with the player trading model. If the money's right, just sell him. I think there are other left backs out there. We spoke about James Penrice from Hearts on one of the podcasts the other night. Could he be a suitable replacement? We'll still get Ridvan Yilmaz in the building. Robbie Fraser's still under contract with us as well. He's got another year left in his deal, so there's possibly options as well to upgrade on that. But again, it's something that the numbers need to be right. But if it's a quick turnaround, we bought him for very little. I think £500,000 was mentioned there, and if you could get anything, probably 5 million plus. I think 10 million is probably shooting for the stars a little bit in his value. But if you get 5 million from him, you've 10 times your money for him. I don't know what Fluminense will be due out of that deal, if anything at all. But he certainly falls under the bracket of it wouldn't hurt me. I wouldn't be too bothered about it. Seagull, I think there's better options out there for him.
Doug, what I would say about him for me is that he's the kind of one that I would, Raskin is someone I'd hope to stay, hope to build that midfield kind of round. Maybe get him on another contract like people have said already. The ones like Jeff Day, where they come in for a small fee, And as Ryan's saying there, 5 million is not unrealistic. They're the ones we don't have to be selling people for 10, 20 million for it to be a successful trading model, does it?
Absolutely not. And indeed, the vast majority of the player sales that we make will not be your 10, 15, 20 million players. Those are the ones that we get once every couple of years. And we want to maybe make that once every other year. But for every 10 players you sell, 9 of them will be just sort of your more sub 10 values. And like you say, the trick for us is to just be looking to make profit, make decent money. Like the perfect example is Fashion Sakala, who we brought in and sold for a great profit.
You trying to make me great? You trying to make me great?
It hurts me too. But for me, Jeff Day is the perfect player to sell. Because obviously the other thing you have to account for, like you sort of touched on there, is what impact does that player leaving have? Now, I think Nicholas Raskin leaving will make a big impact on our team because he's been such an important player. He's had such an influence in the squad. The same way that I said at the start of the season when I thought we were going to be selling Tavernier, he will be a big impact player for us when he goes as well, because he has an impact on the team in terms of the numbers he gets for assists. So when you look at that, I think that's something that you want to try and balance. Like you say, you're going to have players that you go, actually, if we can, we want to build a team around this guy. That's your Nicholas Raskin. We ideally keep him as long as humanly possible, unless you get that really good bid. But Jeff Day, I think Jeff Day's been a good player, but he's not been a great player. His numbers has been the main thing. I've tripped on about that a couple of times now. He's only got 2 assists and 40 plus appearances this season. Which for me, for a Rangers fullback, isn't good enough. He needs to be doing more there. Partly is impacted obviously by your strikers and your players on the end of the ball, but I do think if you compare him to Tavernier, who's on I think 12 assists now, I think you can get more there. And he has had chances to score as well. I would like to have seen him get a couple of goals, maybe. So when you're looking at it at that point in terms of impact, I think. To me, I'm looking at that and thinking about players like Sterling, Caston Virgil that we've had around this season as well, who could easily be playing in that position. And would I feel like the team's hugely at a deficit? I don't think so. They bring different things, but I wouldn't be sitting there going, oh, no, I can't believe we've not got Jeff Day. We're having to play Casa. Oh, we're having to play Sterling. I'd be going, okay, no, that's fine. They're solid players. So to me, that tells me, right, we can replace this player. So to me, you get a 5+ bid for him. He should be gone, because to me, that would be a successful transfer.
Well, can I come in there? Can I come in there?
Of course, mate, yeah.
Doug, is it really fair to use Tav as a standard bar for a fullback? I mean, Jeff Day's obviously generating interest right now. Chelsea work off of stats, Brighton work off of stats. So he's obviously covered some kind of distance in his numbers this season for him to flash up in these teams. So he's obviously doing something right. Is it not a wee bit harsh to compare Jeff Day to Tavernier? I mean, Tavernier's been a great servant and a great player, a massive player for Rangers over the years, but I think it's a bit harsh now, a young boy. That's just my opinion.
I'm not saying he should be hitting Tavernier numbers. I mean, like I said, Tavernier's an experienced player, and not only is he an experienced player, but he's a unique player, because 99.9% of fullbacks do not get the numbers that Tavernier get. I mean, he's the highest scoring defender in British defending history. So I'm not expecting him to get that, but right. I would just like him to get closer, a little bit closer. Like as I say, he's got two assists in 40 odd games. I'd like that to be 5, 6, 7 assists plus a couple goals, so that he's. I mean, maybe I should say Barisic. You could compare him against Barisic as well, who again, his numbers were very high. So maybe not, or then again, maybe we should be comparing them. I mean, if we want to win things, we want to be the best. We should be demanding the best out of our players. But again, I mean, that's why I'm.
He's a 500 grand left back with 1 year's experience in Cyprus, but
true. But I still think with the chances he's had, he could have done a little bit more, or he could become better at those things. And indeed, we would need him to be better than at those things. Because, as I say, you compare him to other players like, say, Penrice, who has better numbers. So I'm just saying that's something I think he can develop in his game. He does have a lot of really good attributes. Like his pace is excellent. He has that Kent-esque ability to burst past players and make things happen. I was really excited at the start of the season when there looked like there was a relationship development between him and Danilo, where he was getting to the byline and cutting balls back, and Danilo was waiting in that pocket to get again. I can't remember what game it was. Was it against Hibs maybe in one of the early games where Danilo was just coming back and got about 4 chances from that exact move? And I was like, oh, that could be really good. Now, unfortunately, we've never really seen that because Danilo's never really played. But I just think, like you say, we could get a little bit more out of him. But yeah, I don't mean to say he should be doing what Tavernier's doing. They're the opposite end of their careers, obviously. But and like you say, there's obviously something there because he has been a good player. And you don't get teams like Chelsea looking at him if he's not got anything. But I just think that if he leaves, we can replace him. Is ultimately the point I'm getting at. Whereas if Raskin leaves, I think he's much more difficult to replace.
Fair enough.
Well, thank you, you two. You just gave the listeners an insight to what a group chat looks like. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to bring up a comment here for you, Scotty, because I think you started it. So if we had Penrice and Fraser and sell Ridvan and Jeffy in the summer, would you accept that?
No.
No, I tend to agree with you there. Yeah.
I would take... No, if the takeover's not happening, then I sell Jeffy, which, like Doug's also says, about £5 million. I think Jeffy could be a £10-15 million player in time. Not right now, but in time. I think he could be a bigger asset than what he would be if we choose to sell him in the summer. That's when you would like Robbie Fraser to come in and fight out with Ridvan. Like, promote your youth players. Robbie Fraser's not done as a bad turn when he's played. The only way they're going to get experience of these boys is to get them game time. We've done that. We send them on loan to Livy. He's shown up well. It's a league lower, don't get me wrong, but it's still games under a boy's belt. I would like to see Robbie Fraser stay and get a chance, but if this takeover goes ahead, then to me, you're looking at a better quality left back. I think Ridvan, for me, I think his time probably is coming to an end as well. There's obviously always interest in Turkey in him. I would sell him just purely because he's injury record, and we can't afford to be having these can't afford to be carrying anybody, put it that way. Penrice is a good player, but his age, he's 26, 27. He'd be one of the players that you're bringing in to have an impact for years to come instead of selling him. So would he come in and be the best left back we've got? Potentially. But if you've got 2-3 million sitting there to spend on a different left back, then we've got a left back video coming out in the Cotman Report in the next couple of days. People can tune in and find it.
Thanks, mate. And just mention, because it's halfway through the pod, our match sponsors, which is Off to the Match I Go. If you go to offtothematchigo.co.uk, you will get 10% off any orders if you use the code Journal10. And if you've got a smartphone, you can just scan the QR code on the screen right now. Again, that discount, use the code Journal10. Ryan, I'm going to change player now, and I'm going to bring the picture back up. Do you mind picking a player that piques your interest, whether we should keep, sell, or whatever? I'll bring that back up. Anybody on there that I'd like to talk about?
Danilo. Let's have a wee chat about him.
So let's look at the brief stats on Danilo. If I can find them. Where is he? I can't find them, Doug. What's it? Oh,
third column, second from the bottom.
There you go. Thank you very much. Age 25, so a good age. Contract ends still in 3 years' time. Transfer market has him at 3.3. Is that potentially? Probably, I think would we spend 4.5 on him. You're really only getting your money back at that level. So I guess is it his fault he's been so injured, Ryan?
No, certainly not. He's been quite unlucky, to be honest with you. I think the first bad one was he broke his cheekbone scoring for us against St Johnstone. So that could happen to him when he burst his knee, and another one as well. again, it could happen to any players. Unfortunately, the operation wasn't as successful as it was. But like Scotty was saying about carrying people, I think he's one that we actively need to move on. Especially as well as he's rumoured to be one of the highest earners at the club as well. And he's, if you're looking at somebody who's picking up a good wage, they need to be contributing every single week for us. At this moment in time, fortunately, he's not. He's our third choice striker behind Dessers and Eagleman. So picking up that kind of wage to be a third choice striker for me doesn't make any sense. So he has to be, I think, actively moved on as quickly as possible.
Fair enough. I'll go back round a different order this time. Scotty, on Danilo, he gets a lot of, I don't mean a pass, but he gets a lot of, he gets better the more he's injured, if that kind of thing, whereas Dessers seems to get a lot of the heat for, missing chances or whatever. Danilo misses similar amount of chances, and they always, you say, oh, well, he gets back up again and he tries again, but so does Dessers. So why does he get more of a pass when it comes to the fans than Dessers does?
It's a difficult time. It's a difficult one because, like Ryan says, his time at club's been plagued by injury, but through no fault of his own. I still think he's the best striker at the club, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think he just needs a run of games, and his body needs to get used to the physicality of Scottish football in terms of which way he moves his body, because essentially that's what's caused him to pick up these injuries, is the physicality of the league and not being smart enough in terms of how to negotiate his body in a football match when it comes to Scottish football, which comes through lack of experience, and that's nobody's fault. I just think the guy's got everything. He's got a lovely touch. And he's got an eye for goal. He's got a bit of pace. He offers something different. Dessers gets the heat because of how hot and cold he is. Now, Danilo will give you a 6, 7 or an 8 every week. Dessers will give you a 2 or a 10. I think that's where the middle barring is behind it. And in fact, I quite like Ryan's thoughts on that because he quite likes Dessers. I'm not a big fan of Dessers, as you know. I think Danilo is a better striker, but it'd be nice to know, from Ryan's point of view, since he's a bit of a Dessers fanboy, what he thinks.
I wouldn't go that far.
We'll come back in, Ryan.
I wouldn't go that far. I admire Dessers' contribution more than I would admire Danilo's contribution, to be honest with you. The fact that you're talking about how much heat that Dessers gets. Dessers has hardly missed a game for Rangers, or been unavailable for a game since he got here. He's scoring the goals. He's our top goal scorer this season. He might have been last season. Somebody can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But Danilo is just constantly, he's always working back. He's working back. He's getting used to it. Give him time. All the while he's picking up £30,000 a week after we spent £6 million on him. So, and I'm sorry if I'm being harsh on Danilo, but I expect more for somebody that we're spending that amount of money on. For me, it's unsuccessful, and if it's unsuccessful, it doesn't belong in the building. So I think there was a chance that Danilo had, talking about having an eye for goal and all these sorts of things. There was a chance he had against, was it Motherwell in the most recent game, where he could have put a hole in the net, and he decides more or less he's on the penalty spot to square it to somebody in the box, where he should have been putting a hole in the net. He should have been trying to smash the ball down the Coltman Road via the goals, and he passes it. So for me, a player who is on, that's rumoured to be you're saying is the best player in the club, that's a goal all day long. Eagleman doesn't pass that up. I don't think Dessers would have passed it up. So for me, it's not working. There's a comment there for Robert, how do you sell a player that's not playing? You get his agent involved, and you get him touted around Europe, and it might be a loan deal in the first year with an obligation to buy or an option to buy, but there's ways and means you can get players out of the building. And for me, the wee man's got to be one. We've got to be looking to strengthen next season, and there's no room for any passengers on that train next season. We've got to go all out next season to make sure that we are the premier team in the country. I fully expect us to go and absolutely annihilate this next year. I'm desperate to see it happen. It's been too easy for them for too long, and it's signings like Danilo, Lammers, Cifuentes that are causing that to happen. So that's my thoughts on it, mate.
No, thanks very much, Ryan. And I'll better come to you, Doug, on the same subject. Let me just say, Celtic went ahead in the cup final, and not many minutes to go, and I had no expectation we were going to pull one back, and then within 60 seconds, Danilo has equalised for us with a decent finish. Is that what he can give you, the kind of opportunistic type finishing, as opposed to maybe, Iggaman with the brute power and Dessers with the hot and cold?
Yeah, it's hard to judge because we've seen so little of him. But I mean, from what I've seen, he's got the best movement of the three. He's quite clever in terms of making runs off the ball as well as on the ball. Iggaman, I think, is better with his runs on the ball. He seems to have that sharpness in the box to make movements to get into opportune positions. Like I sort of mentioned earlier, with when he was doing that getting those cutbacks from JFD, it was for making smart movements in the box. I think he's good at that as well. So he's got a lot of, I feel like, kind of natural striker instincts to him. But like I say, it's just hard to see how that would pan out. He's more when you look at his sort of goal scoring over time, it's more consistent than Dessers is, but not by much. The two of them have both been very much have a great season of scoring, then 2 seasons of not doing anything, then a great season of scoring, then a couple of seasons not doing anything. Dessers has really found his feet with us in the last 2 years. I mean, he'd had in terms of league goals, he got 15 league goals in the Eredivisie in 1920, and then he didn't score more than 10 for the next 6 seasons until he came to us, and then started absolutely bagging goals in. And Danilo was kind of like 2021, he got 17 league goals in the Eredivisie, 2 seasons under 10, but then he got a season of 10, and he's not obviously hit the heights with us. So they're kind of similar, I think, in a lot of ways. Dessers gets the grief because Dessers has been the one that's been fit. I mean, I consider Dessers to be a successful signing in every way, pretty much, because he scored lots of goals, which is what a striker should do. He's been available all the time, which for a Rangers player is few and far between. And despite the narrative that he never scores in big games, that's not entirely true. He does score in important games. He hasn't always done it. Last season in particular, in some of the old firms, he did have chances that he didn't take that would have changed the game. But that was his first year. He's improved a lot of his metrics. He's missing less chances now than he did last season, and by conversion, he's scoring slightly more goals. He's en route to beat last year. So I ultimately have to conclude that if you're going to sell somebody, Danilo would be the one, because whether it's just been bad luck or whether, it is what it is. And if we can get our money back for him, I think we'll be doing well. And then I think it's a case of just going out and trying to find someone else, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good he is. If he's not available, then it's irrelevant. He could be Ronaldo, but if he's not fit, then there's still no point in having him.
Scott, a good couple of questions there, or a couple of comments on strikers. I'll bring this one up first. For me, there's another comment. This is my opinion. I would be looking to sell and get rid of Danilo and Dessers in the summer. Now, as regards to what kind of quality of striker we'll be looking at, we don't know yet with the budgets it's going to be. But as regards a type of striker that we need, so let's say we will hopefully keep a hold of Iggaman, and we've got to replace 2 others. What's the kind of 2 type of striker you'd like to see come in? Both the same or completely different?
I don't know. It's an interesting one. So obviously Shankland was mentioned. I think you need somebody who can score goals in the league. That doesn't need to be Shankland. That could be Sam Dalby. He's doing a job at Dundee United. He's scored. Doug, I don't know how many goals he's scored this season, but I think he's maybe top scorer in the league, second top scorer. There's players like that all over the league that can come in and do a job, that know the physicality, that know the league, that know the defenders, that can score important goals. Now, when I say that, I need to caveat that by saying that they must come in as a third choice striker, not come in as a starter. Right, that's not what I'm saying in the slightest. And then you go out and if you're keeping Iggaman, then you spend 3-4 million quid on a kind of guy that's Danilo's age, maybe a wee bit younger, that's been in another country, that's proven it, that can come in, make an impact, that can put bums on seats. Sima, for example, you could go and get Sima, bring him in to play him through the middle. He played through the middle for his opener. Somebody like that would be interesting. I think the whole Shankland thing, just to answer that boy's question, that boat's gone. It's well and truly sank, I'm afraid. That's done. It's in the water. I think the chance to sign him was last January, and it's been and done. So he'll not be coming to Rangers. Rangers don't want him. He's away to his own thing anyway. So, but in terms of Dessers and Danilo, out the two of them, if one was going to stay, it would probably be Dessers, because he knows the league more. He's more durable. But I say a caveat that I find him as frustrating as he is. Like, I mean, he missed a couple of chances before the Fraserburgh game, scored a hat-trick and then scored a world at Man United. It's just the life for Cyril Dessers. I do think you could get 3 or 4 million back from him. I still think you could get your price back for Dessers, which is why I would probably sell. Just now, I think the forward line needs a whole revamp, because we don't know who the manager's going to be, what his style of play is going to be. Is he going to play 3 to back and 2 up front, or is he going to do what Barry's doing, stick with 3 to back and play like a 1-1 up front with Cherny running in, somebody like Cherny running in about there? It's difficult to say, but I would like a physical striker, a pacey striker, and somebody that can put the ball in the back of the net, that knows the league, Billy.
No, I agree with you there. And you mentioned Seaman. There's a couple of comments in the comment section about Seaman as well. Ryan, is Seaman the type of striker that you could see doing well with us? I've got to say, I've got reservations of him being the out-and-out striker or player like him.
I have got some reservations about it as well. Seaman's held in high regard by Rangers fans, but Seaman gave the worst 45 minutes of football I've ever seen from a Rangers player. Or 44 minutes when he played PSV at Ibrox, then proceeded to stick one right in the top corner. He was absolutely appalling that night until he scored. He's a difficult player to play against. He's a very kind of raw player. He reminds me of kind of a wee bit like, speaking with Fashion Sakala a couple of minutes ago there. I think he lacks real kind of genuine quality, to be honest with you. I think he's a player who's, I wouldn't mind in my squad, but I wouldn't be pinning all my hopes on him, if that makes sense as well. He's the kind of guy that would make a good impact sub for us. I think we've seen that in the Scottish Cup final, how well he done as an impact sub last season. But he's also got quite a bad injury record as well, remember. He's one of the guys that spends a lot of time on the treatment table. So I wouldn't be going all out for Sima, to be honest. If the numbers worked and the numbers were okay, fine. But for me, there's better out there. There is other Abdillah Simas out there. Somebody's put a wee question mark there with Aribo with a question mark. I wouldn't have a problem with that, to be honest. I think that would be okay. Southampton are likely to get relegated this season, so would they be interested? Would they be available? Would they be looking to move him on? I'm not sure what his contract situation is, but Joe Aribo I thought was fantastic for us in the years that he was with us. Nearly gave us one really very special night. It was so close that we can't really talk about. So no, it's not for me, for Sima. Definitely not Shankland. 100%. That's gone. But if we were going to sign Shankland, we should have done it last January. That chance is came and went. So not interested in him whatsoever.
Just on that match, Ryan, I went back through my comments to my mate Cammy, not from this podcast, although I have invited him on. He'd do really well if he came on here. Anyway, I've sent him a message that during that 44 minutes you're talking about, I don't like Sima, and that's all I said. So I know the game. As soon as you said it, it stuck back in with me. And then, of course, a minute later, he puts that goal away. Yep. Doug, Sima, Aribo, I guess they're a similar ilk of player. Maybe you would say that Sima's much more physical or much more athletic. Joe Aribo coming back is an interesting one, but he's not really a striker either. I mean, he fitted in there, but it wasn't exactly. It was kind of square pegs for round holes, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Aribo's a central midfielder, an attacking midfielder. He only played that far forward because of our continuous injury woes. But I mean, Sima scored 16 goals in the season he was with us. Aribo got 26 goals in the 150 performances. So, I mean, in terms of goal scoring, they're night and day. If you're wanting goals, then you'd sign Sima. If he hadn't been injured, he'd probably have hit 26 on his own that year. I do share the injury worries. He had a couple of injuries while he's been. Is it Brest? Is it Brest he was at went to? Yeah. I think he has had a couple of injuries there. He's not had any major ones. They've all been small, couple of days here and there, I think. But it is something that we, as I say, we do need to consider because it's always an issue. I'm not sure for Aribo's for me, particularly if a lot of fans talk about wanting fast attacking football, particularly the Muscat sort of enclave of fans that are a fan of him coming in as manager. And I think Aribo is similar to Hadji in that he can slow the game down a bit because he's got that kind of slightly more languid, not to compare them, but that kind of more languid Berbatov-esque kind of approach to the game. I feel like sometimes. But when he was up for a game, he could be a bit more combative. Like I remember the goal he scored in Braga, against Braga, I should say, was really good. Where he kind of fought his way through about 6 players to get through to the goal. So he did have that in him, but for me, he didn't do it often enough. And I have paid attention to him in particular when he's left, and I still feel like that's a part of his game. He has a tendency to drift out of matches just a little bit too often, and I think that's why he's never really. I don't think he's ever really become a complete mainstay of that Southampton team. He's kind of coming in, he kind of comes in and out for periods, and I think that's because sometimes he'll go missing and he doesn't really affect the game enough. He's one of those. I think I was happy that we had him, and I wouldn't be crying if he came back, but I would probably I would be looking for who's the next Joe Aribo and bringing him in.
Scott, I know you follow Leeds United. I'm sure you watch a bit of English football. The type of striker I'd like to come back in is a Rod Wallace. Is there anybody in that Championship level that could do that kind of job?
The only one I would have mentioned would have been that Tommy Conway that signed for Middlesbrough for Bristol City, Scottish international, etc., etc. He could have come in and done a job. It's difficult to put players for the Championship now, Billy, because even if you look at Birmingham, they're going out and spending 18 million quid in that Jay Stansted or Stansfield, I think it was, for Fulham. We're not really in that market, I don't think. Obviously, Gordon is on a chat tonight. Me and him have spoke about this boy called Shin Yamada for a long, long time. You need to go and check this guy out. He's absolutely unbelievable. Talk about different types of goals. He's strong, he's powerful, he's got a good bit of burst of pace on him. Left foot, right foot, header, the lot. That would be my pick instead of. I would rather go to J League and start unearthing some of these gems rather than going and bringing in another player like Cantwell whose career has got off to a good start and then kind of stalled, if you know what I mean. It's difficult to say. Rory Wilson at Villa would have been another one who left us to go back down there, who sadly is going to sign another 3-year contract, so we've missed the boat on that one again. But players like that, I think England's out with one means, even with this takeover. If there's anybody for Leeds, I would probably look at Joe Gilhart. He's on loan at Hull just now. He's scored for fun down there for them. He's playing really well. He was linked with Rangers in January before he took his loan move. He's quite a small, stocky player. He can get past, he can play anywhere. This is what I was saying about Sima as well, is he can play anywhere across the front three, can play in either wing. It's the same with kind of Joel Gilhart. You would want one of your strikers to be able to fill in these sort of positions, similar to what Kemar Roofe done in the 55 season when he played right wing next to Morelos. Some similar like that. So it's difficult to say, but I think the Championships, if you look at Kieran Dowell, Ben Davies, I think we've learnt our lesson for signing journeymen, to be honest with you. If there's a player at Leeds that could come and do a job, then you can maybe get a wee loan move or something to save yourself a bit of money or whatever, but I wouldn't say there's any gems that I think that are within Rangers' reach.
Ryan, I do agree with Scotty there with the Championship probably being not a great market for us to go down to. And I think a lot of that comes with the English market. These players they come through the youth system and they're treated like they've already made it. And then when players like Cantwell or Dow come to us and they see a demanding fan base, they've not got it in their psyche to put up with that. So looking at foreign leagues, is that where you ideally would be looking to go rather than going back down to England?
I think that's where the gems are. I mean, we've seen a varying success from shopping in these leagues. We've seen, obviously, spoke about Raskin, early doors in the podcast, coming from Standard Liège and how well he's done. We've seen Borna Barisic come from Osijek, and he, by all accounts, had a reasonably successful time played for Rangers, part of a league-winning season. We've seen it not work out. We've seen the likes of Cedric Kitten come in and not really hit the ground running. We've seen Eros Grezda not doing really well. We've shopped the American market, the MLS, for James Sands and Cifuentes, and it's not worked out. So we need to go with the kind of tried and tested. Scandinavian League is where I'd be looking at. There must be at least 2 or 3 players that play for Bodo Glimt that must have a bit of something about them. Bodo Glimt are very much, causing upsets all the time in Europe. They've even caused upsets in Glasgow, which we enjoyed as well. So there's got to be players playing in that kind of type of league that we can go and have a look at. I think there's a boy at Hamburg that plays in the middle of the park. I think he might be Serbian, that was on the Koppen report as well, that was looked at. You're talking about boys from the Far East as well. They settle very well in Scotland. That we've obviously seen to our detriment that they've settled too well. But guys that come from Asia seem to do very well in British football. There's obviously guys down south. There's a boy that plays up front for Wolves who's absolutely fantastic. I can't remember his name, but he looks a real live wire. He even go back to players like part that plays for Man United and stuff like that. So these are the markets for me that we should be shopping in. And we've seen with recent success Higaman, who's came from the Moroccan league and done really well for him in his first season. So these are the markets that we've got to be exploring and doing well. But what we've got to be careful of is bleeding them into the team properly. I think Higaman didn't get his first start until, was it October, November time, before he actually kind of get into the team. So talking about selling players and let's get rid of him, that could be the detriment of the players that we sign, because it can't be that revolving door. We might have to bring in half a dozen players, but keep a half a dozen players maybe we don't want to keep for another season, 6 months at least, to let these other players at least come in and get, climatised to the league. But the English Championship for me is a horrible league to try and do business in. Most of these players that are playing the English Championship would want to step up to either an upper Championship team if they're playing the lower level of it, or the players that are playing the top of the Championship probably fancy themselves a Premier League player. So I don't imagine Scottish football will be a destination they'll be considering themselves. I think probably looking at players in League One. There was talk of that boy from Peterborough, the Ghanaian boy that plays up front. He looks a real hot prospect, and obviously we've seen the success of Ivan Toney coming out of Peterborough, so it can't be that bad a place to go. Ivan Toney played for Peterborough. Nearly had a chance of coming to Rangers, didn't work out, but ended up becoming a full-fledged England internationalist, playing the European Championships last season for him. So these are the markets we need to be exploring, to be honest with you, and see how they go. And it's there, and obviously I'd love the days to come back. We were going out and signing £5-6 million players. We're parading Basil Ball, European Cup winners, Brian Laudrup, European Championship winners for his national team at Ibrox, Gaza, Tore Andre Flo for £12 million. It's not going to happen anytime soon. So we need to do our business and box smart.
Scotty, I'm assuming that you've got a few videos either lined up or you've already done videos on this for the Koppen report.
It was left backs that me and Mitch looked at last week. We're going to record a wingers video on Wednesday, I think, and Poku, who Ryan is telling us about there, is one that has been highlighted to us. What Ryan was saying was interesting there. See, when we go to these markets, that's when you go for your Calvin Bassies, your Joe Aribos, get your free transfers for down south and get that utilise that cross-border fee. To me, that's the only time we should begin doing to England for any kind of talent. The rest of it should be coming from within our own league and elsewhere. I just wanted to add that. But we're going to be doing a winger video this week. We're just waiting on Dave to finish off the the left back video. There's a good couple of players on that would get folks going.
That's great, mate. And yeah, I'll be looking forward to seeing that too. I'm going to say, Ryan, thank you very much for joining me this evening. And Scotty, thank you very much for joining this evening. Doug, also, thank you very much for doing that slide up for me. We never got to talk about all the players we wanted to, but I'm sure we can revisit it on another time. It's a international week, so it's a kind of horrible time waiting for the Rangers games to come back on. Just if I can come to you, Doug, just as regards to markets, is there one particular market you'd like us to shop in? And then we'll finish up.
I think the lads have said Scandinavia's got a lot of good players that and not only that, good players, but at decent prices as well that we can afford. I still think the Dutch league is a good league for us. We've also got great history of Dutch players. I don't think we're going to get quite that level again, but there's players to be found in there as well. So I think those are the kind of markets. Belgium. I'm still a fan of the American market as well. I think all of these kind of basically that grouping of leagues that are kind of just under us in terms of the UEFA rankings is where you want to go to. That where we can get value, because that's the problem with the Championship is there's plenty of great players in the Championship that would make great players for us, but we'll pay an extra $5 million for them because they come from the Championship, or we'll pay an extra $2 million for them because they come from the Championship, and we'll have to pay all those wages. And I think that's for me, that's the main reason we need to leave that market alone. I think for me, I'd agree with the guys. Scandinavia and places like America, Belgium, Holland, that kind of thing is where I'd like to see it's looking.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone, for watching the show. You can catch us later on the podcast apps. I'll release this as an audio podcast. So if you like to listen back to them, please go and listen to that Spotify, Apple, the usual places. And also, thank you very much to our sponsor, Off to the Match I Go. Again, scan that QR code or go to offtothematchigo.co.uk and use the code Journal10 to get 10% off. Well, the real football's nearly back, guys. Just a few more days to go. So hold out for that. And remember, every night is a Rangers Journal night. Good night.